every secularist should support Lord Ram.
I just want to begin by saying that on the 9th of January, the activists of the Vishwa Parishad and myself would be meeting in a seminar in Delhi to chalk out plans for how to ensure that by the end of 2016 the Ram Temple is built. And many of you wanted to have your feet on the ground, as what somebody said, Pechan, something he said, was that our Bihar leader, he said, what दिखाई पड़े तो
जो दिखता है वो बिकता है.
हाँ, जो दिखता है वो बिकता है. Who said that? Delhi, हाँ, okay. Mago, where is he? He must be sleeping. Delhi also. And you will see that time you will be a lot of dikta going on for you. So that program will start. The seminar, of course, is, I don't think it's going to be an open seminar. So I don't know what will be the status of our VHS volunteers. That will I'll decide during this month of December. But it will be in Delhi on 9th and 10th of January to draw up a blueprint for how to go about building Ram Temple and why. Second is I have brought out a book called Building the Sri Rama Temple in Ayodhya, where I've given the factual parts, the legal parts and so on. And today I therefore will begin with the basis for which we say Ram Temple must be built and why it is a constitutional principle. First of all, let us be clear what is a temple in the Hindu religion. A temple is not only a place of worship, but it is also a community center. And so in the ancient days, the temple was part of a yoga center also, Sanskrit teaching centers, Vedas teaching. It was Ayurveda. So it was a place where you go for, it's almost like going, if I may, without being accused of blasphemy, saying going to a mall for Hindus. So therefore, the temple was something very special. And that's why the foreign invaders attacked it. Because it would make it impossible for Hindus to congregate and come to a common point of view. And so this is one aspect of the temple which you must be very clear about. That is not just building a temple and going and praying to Ram, but in fact you can do many other things which are culturally connected with Hinduism, and therefore it's almost like going for a weekend somewhere or for a conference somewhere, that kind of thing. Even sammelans, conferences, all these would be held in these premier temples. Now, what happens is that when you build a temple, the people who are engaged in designing and organizing the structuring of the building, these are called Agama Pandits. And there is a procedure by which you build a temple. You can't just open a temple on the footpath and so on. That, okay, if you have faith, you can go and the fellow who does it will also earn some money and he'll have some work to do. But the real temple in the Hindu concept is when you conduct 41 days of pujas, and on all 41 days you are supposed to, the people who are conducting puja are supposed to fast. And it is only after that the Murti's place is determined and something placed here. I went recently to Somnath, just about last week, where I was asked, they were all top pandits, all sadhu sants were there, and a Krishna temple is being built in the campus of the Somnath temple. Now, so Somnath is a Shaivite. It is Shiva, but it is for the bhaktas who are generally Shaivites. The Vaishnavites generally avoid it. Coming to Shaivite mandirs, this is amongst our Hindus, this division is there. It's not a very serious division, but it's a division. To end that, it was felt that we should build a Krishna temple in the Somnath campus, and also that when Krishna had a hunter shoot an arrow into his foot, he was sleeping looking at Somnath. I mean, that spot is very near Somnath. So Somnath has two connections with Krishna, and therefore, of course, Krishna was from Dwarka, which is nearby. And there I learned the extensive preparation that goes on for doing the Bhumi Puja for the building of the temple. And they asked me, maybe they got confused that my name is Swamy, so, and sometimes they wear Bhagwa kurtas also. So maybe they did, but anyway, I was there in this August company and I learned about it. So please don't think temple is just something that you can build anywhere. It's once you build it according to this Shastra and according to this puja. What is believed in Hindus is that the Lord for whom the temple is being consecrated, he enters the murti and he then takes over the temple. He becomes the owner. And no Indian, no Hindu, no human can be an owner of a temple. He can be a trustee to administer a temple, but he cannot own the temple. The Lord is the owner of the temple, and everything is done in his name. And therefore, a Hindu temple is permanent. Whether you conduct pujas there, you don't conduct pujas there, lock it up and go. The Christians, for example, they don't get enough donations, not enough people are coming. They then simply pick up the cross and leave and sell the church. They have been selling it to Vishnu Parishad in America, who are then converting it into a temple. And they don't mind it because they say it's just a building for us. Temple is not just a building. Besides being part of a community center, it is also a place owned by God, and therefore it is a permanent thing. Now, as a consequence, any temple built, destroyed, is still that spot belongs to the temple, or the Lord who is the deity of the temple. And this I learned for the first time in 1991, when as law minister, Rajiv Gandhi had in 1984 discovered that a magnificent Nataraj statue from Tanjavur had been smuggled and was going to be auctioned. And so he had at that time started some queries and some letters were written to the British government and so on. So by the time 1990 came, he was out of power and I entered as part of the Chandrasekhar government. So this was brought to my attention that this Nataraj statue belongs to a temple in Tanjavur and it should not be auctioned because it was part of the pujas of that temple. And the temple, of course, is not in use, but that doesn't mean that this murti can be taken away. So we filed a case and it went up to the House of Lords, which is the Supreme Court. And there we adduced the argument that this is a murti that was consecrated or was part of the Prana Pratishtha Puja and was of this temple. Yes, it's a fact that the temple is in disuse and is under lock and key, a lot of grass has grown around, but it still is a temple and therefore it belongs to this temple and should be restored there. So the court went into this in great detail, and the people who were going to auction it, they argued, well, it was lying uncared for, and we paid some money to the Chowkidar, who was also the farmer of the area, and we bought it, so it becomes our property. And consequently, the House of Lords decided that we were right, the government of India was right, that it is in fact so that according to Hindu principles, a temple built according to these pujas is always a temple, and therefore the Nataraja statue should be returned. It was returned back to India. So this is now an established legal principle, and on the spot where Lord Rama was born, was a temple was built. That's there in our traditions throughout, and being so believed by many. Even Guru Nanak went just before the Babri Masjid demolition, and he also came to the conclusion that this is where Ram was born, and he has recorded it in his writings. So this is an undisputed fact. In 1886, there was somebody filed a petition in a magistrate's court, an Englishman heard it, and then he said, it's greatly unfortunate, so unfortunate that that a temple built on the land where Ram was born, believed to be so, should have been demolished and a mosque should be built. But now 300 years have gone by, and therefore there's no point in breaking it up, so he didn't decide the petition. So there's never any dispute that that place belonged to Ram. So this is something that you must first be clear. Now come to the concept of a mosque. According to a constitutional bench of the Supreme Court of India, 1994 is the date of the judgment. And it's a reported judgment, you can always read it. They went into this whole question of the circumstances in which the Babri Masjid was demolished and what should be done now and how the dispute should be settled, whether it is Babri Masjid land or is it Ram Janmabhoomi. So while going into that, they made a comment which led me to investigate further. The court has recorded that let it be made absolutely clear that a mosque is not an essential part of Islamic religion. Now, I don't know why there was no furor and rioting and all that on this concept. I had said similar thing in Kaziranga University in near Guwahati, and a warrant was issued in my name. But this is something I based it on the Supreme Court judgment to begin with. And the court also held that namaz, a mosque is a place for reading namaz, and namaz can be read anywhere. It can be read in a railway platform, it can be read here, it can be read in an aeroplane, and you see that they even block roads, and then on special occasions they fill it with bhaktas, Muslim bhaktas who do namaz. Namaz can be read anywhere. So then what is the status of a mosque? I inquired from the Saudi Arabians about this, because the Saudi Arabians, I found, and you can see this in Google also, have been demolishing mosques regularly to build roads and also build apartment buildings. And Turkey Prime Minister, who is supposed to be compliant to the clerics, he made a statement for building a highway. I will demolish as many mosques as I like, because building a highway is very important for the future of Turkey. So like that I collected these statements, and finally I got to see one of the sheikhs of, the number 3 king, number 3 in the royalty of Saudi Arabia, who is also finance minister, had come here and he had invited me for dinner. And there, both the Saudi Arabian ambassador and they were there. And later on I had lunch with the Saudi Arabian ambassador to get a further confirmation. And I asked them, is it a fact that you are, as a state, entitled to demolish a mosque? So he said, yes, we do that. I said, why? Doesn't it hurt the religious sentiment of the Muslims of Saudi Arabia? So he said, no, because the mosque is a place for reading namaz and it can be read anywhere. So usually when we demolish it means we gave them permission to shift to some other place. And they refused it. So therefore we demolished it. And I did ask them that supposing we demolish mosques here for a public purpose, will you support us? He said, yes, if you do it with a little love, not with the hatred. So I said, well, that is easy, because we can always tell them. So therefore a mosque is not the same as a temple. And the mosque, Babri Masjid, was built on that very spot where Ram temple had existed, and therefore it was a deliberate act to create a kind of awe, terror in the public, that these things we can do. So therefore, being clear of these two projects, these two aspects, the object of building a mosque where a temple stood, whether it is in Mathura of Krishna, or it is in Kashi Vishwanath of Varanasi, or in Ayodhya, Ram, or in 40,000 other places in the country for which we have record, there may be more, but they have records 40,000, was actually the invaders' way of insulting the Hindu population. And may I not tell you, the Ayodhya people never accepted this. There are 72 battles recorded over a period of 200 years following the demolition, when lakhs of a total of lakhs of Hindus were killed in battles, and the battle continued. After the British came, then Britishers continued. Never did the people of Ayodhya ever settle for this. It's all done now. Didn't accept this as fait accompli. Now. Then now comes the question, is there proof that there was temple? Alright, Guru Nanak said that it is there, faith is there, these are important enough. Now under our law, faith is enough. And that also Supreme Court once, in Tamil Nadu there was this Dravidian movement leader called Ramaswamy Nayakar. I don't know why he had kept the name Ramaswamy Nayakar, since they hated Rama. But anyway, Ramaswamy Nayakar one day held a meeting in Trichy, and he went to a shop and bought a Ganapati, and then in the meeting he started saying, hey you Hindus, all idiots, believers, here I will show what your God is worth. And he took that Ganapati clay model and boom, he hit it on the floor and broke. He said, where is Ganapati? So somebody filed a case and took it to the Supreme Court. And Supreme Court gave a judgment where Ramaswamy Nayakar's lawyers argued that, what do you mean prosecuting us, the Tamil Nadu government prosecuting us? Because he went and bought that Ganapati. If it was so sacred, why was it being sold? And since he bought it, it became his property, he can do what he likes with this property. So Supreme Court said, maybe that was not a Ganapati in a temple, but still the faith is there in that murti, and people buy it for special occasions for puja in their own houses, and therefore even if you purchased it, it is an object of faith, and therefore our section 295A is attracted and you have to be prosecuted. So Supreme Court has also held this about murtis in general. People can't just buy it and say it is my property now, I can do what I like with it. So in that concept, in that connection, how do I know that there was this temple? Well, in 1993, January 7th, after the Babri Masjid demolition on December 6th, which is today. This happens to be also, by the way, a very pious date for Dr. Ambedkar. Dr. Ambedkar passed away on December 6th. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, December 6th. And Dr. Ambedkar, I say he is more qualified to be called Pandit Ambedkar and not Jawaharlal Nehru called Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Don't mind, no? So, therefore, after the demolition and declaring of President's rule, the President of India, through Narasimha Rao's government, because Narasimha Rao government sends him a resolution of the cabinet, and then he converts that into a presidential reference, which is Article 143 of the Constitution of India, which is a direction to the Supreme Court, or at least a request to the Supreme Court, please answer these following questions. And so the presidential reference question was, and let me read it to you, it was, I've got it extracted in a pamphlet which will be distributed later in the agitation starts. The presidential reference was this: whether this is the government, President of India asking the Supreme Court of India, a constitutional bench, whether a Hindu temple or any Hindu religious structure existed prior to the construction of the Babri Masjid, including the premises of the inner and outer courtyards of such structure in the areas on which the structure stood. That is the Babri Masjid structure stood. Straight question. Did a temple exist before? Presidential reference. In that, the Supreme Court decided that this should be answered by a special commission inquiry set up by the Allahabad High Court. So they sent it to Allahabad High Court, saying, please find out whether there was a existing temple before the Babri Masjid was built. But they also asked the Solicitor General of India, you have given us through the President a reference, but you tell us what is your solution to the problem. What are you going to do now? You have dismissed the state governments, all that fine, Babri Masjid is also demolished. What are you going to do? Are you going to rebuild the Babri Masjid? This is the question they asked the Solicitor General and said, give us your reply on a written affidavit. So an affidavit was given on 14th September 1994 by the Solicitor General of India, and he said the following: if the question referred is answered in the affirmative, namely that a Hindu temple structure did exist prior to the construction of the demolished structure, government action will be in the support of the wishes of the Hindu community. If, on the other hand, the question is answered in the negative, namely that there was no such Hindu temple or structure existed at the relevant time, then the government action will be in support of the wishes of the Muslim community. So, if it is proved that there was a temple, then Hindus will get that land. This is a commitment of the government of India on affidavit. So it's a permanent commitment. Now, then the Muslim leaders were asked this question, and the Muslim parties, and the white paper issued by the government of India records what the Muslim community said. They said, if these assertions of a Hindu temple pre-existing is proved, the Muslims will voluntarily hand over the disputed area to the Hindus to build a temple. And that's almost all the Muslim organizations were represented in the court. They answered this. So we have now got a clear legal position. A temple, we believe, can never be once built. According to the Shastras, the Agama Shastras, cannot be, never a temple. It will always be a temple, whatever you build on it. Two, that if a temple was demolished to build Babri Masjid, the government of India is committed on affidavit to say that they will hand over this land to the Hindus to rebuild the temple. And third is Muslim community leaders saying, if you prove that there was a temple, then we will hand it over. We will what? The exact words is voluntarily hand over. Problem solved. Only you have to prove that there was a temple. Now the Allahabad High Court then decided to set up a commission inquiry in 2002. And then after about a year, no, it set it up 2000, and after 3 years, it was handed over to the Archaeological Survey of India, who used all the modern methods known, such as GPR, which is ground penetrating radar, and digging the place up, all that with all the archaeologists. And it was handed over to the most famous archaeologist of that time, called Dr. B.B. Lal, who has also written a book on Ram Temple, which you people may have read. And what did the Allahabad High Court, after studying the Commission of Inquiry report, say? The disputed structure was constituted. Disputed structure means Babri Masjid was constructed on the site of the old structure after demolition of the same. The Archaeological Survey of India has proved that the structure was a massive Hindu religious structure consisting of a temple. The disputed building was constructed, Babri Masjid, was constructed by Babur. It was built against the tenets of Islam. Thus, it cannot have character of a mosque. This is the court saying this. The disputed site is the birthplace of Lord Rama. This is the court's words. Place of birth is a juristic person and a deity. It is personified in the spirit of the divine worshipped as the birthplace of Lord Rama as a child. Spirit of divine ever remains present everywhere at all times for anyone to invoke in any shape or form or in accordance with his own aspiration, and it can be shapeless and formless too. This is the opinion of the Allahabad High Court judges. Now, there were then some, out of the 3-judge bench, two judges separately wrote, the area covered under the central dome of the disputed structure is the birthplace of Lord Rama as per faith and belief of Hindus. So they will identify the exact spot of the Sanctum Sanctorum. The building in dispute was constructed after demolition of non-Islamic religious structure, i.e. a Hindu temple. Then Justice S.U. Khan gave a third judgment. But all more or less the same. It is further declared that the portion below the central dome, where at present the idol is kept in makeshift temple, will be allotted to the Hindus in the final decree. This is the judgment of the Allahabad High Court. And this is a Muslim judge saying that. And the credit goes to the argument moved by our great friend and also sympathizer of the VHS, G. Rajagopalan, presently appointed by our government as the Additional Solicitor General for all the 5 courts, high courts of the of South India. He had argued, and then the S.U. Khan said that. Then he further said, in point number 2 in his gist of findings, that the Waqf status of the premises in question, it is not proved by direct evidence that the premises in dispute, including the constructed portion, belong to Babur or the person who constructed the mosque or under whose orders it was constructed. I mean, he is even doubting whether this property can be claimed to be the property by, what is it called, by, when you for a long time keep a property which is not yours and it becomes by adverse possession. They rejected that. They said they have no claim. And this is permanently of a temple. Now, the 3-judge bench then unanimously said the Babri structure was not put up on virgin land, but illegally parked on a Hindu temple place of worship. 2 Hindus and 1 Muslim. 3 unanimously concluded this. And all 3 unanimously held that the disputed area contained the birthplace of Lord Rama, according to Justice Khan and Justice Agarwal. The only site of the central dome of the disputed structure was the birthplace, according to Justice Sharma, the 3rd judge. The entire disputed area is the birthplace. So now we have got a clear mandate from the courts. And this has gone in appeal to the Supreme Court by both sides. Why did the VHP side go to the Supreme Court? Because they said that after giving this judgment, they made an oral observation that after all, what is the harm if next to the temple a masjid is also built? Well, there are people who also say a hospital also should be built and all that. Well, why not? Why not a gambling casino also? So, let it be a community center in the full sense of the word. That we cannot accept, because then it will be a law and order problem. We are willing to give an alternative site across the river, Saryu River, and build a mosque. Now, interesting part. The mosque was built by the commander of Babur, and his name was Mir Baki, and he was a Shia. Okay, he was a Shia. So the mosque was for the Shias. Number 1. Number 2, this name Babri. How did this name Babri come? 7-year-old boy in Afghanistan called Babri. Now, when an emperor takes a liking to 7-year-old boy, certain consequences follow. How can you have a masjid named after a 7-year-old boy whom you have exploited? So anyway, you call it some other, you call it by some other name, but across the river. Moreover, a mosque is administered by what they call as a mutwali, means supervisor, and it is by birth. That is, you are born to a mutwali, then you become a mutwali, like that. It has been going on like that. And the present mutwali still lives in Ayodhya, but across the Saryu River. And he has said that any time you want, you build me a nice mosque across the river, I am willing to sign any affidavit that you want to say, I don't want this area. There are no Muslims in that area anymore, and therefore no question of anyone coming to read namaz, so let it be across the river. So all that is left is this Sunni Waqf board, which has no authority here at all. They are interlopers. But I'll fix them through Saudi Arabia, don't worry about that. Now, I'll make some concluding comments. There are a list of 40,000 temples. In my opinion, Narendra Modi, and if he wants, he can depute me, because Chandrasekhar deputed me in 1991 and I had got them to agree We don't want 40,000. Subtract 3 of them. Mathura, Ayodhya, Varanasi, Kashi. These 3 will leave. And they are all established, were demolished. In the case of Kashi Vishwanath, you can see Aurangzeb's own Farman saying that this deserves to be demolished. It's all a place of sin and this and that, horrible language. And in the case of Mathura, you can see the mosque, you see, with a little portion of the temple left. So these 3 you please leave, and 40,000. In nowhere in the world, in anybody's history, have people agreed to forget 1,000 years of brutality. See? But the Hindus are ready to forget. Because we regard Muslims are all come out of the Hindu stock only. So, their ancestors are Hindus. So there's nothing personal against them. We are against those invaders who came. Of course, if you identify with them, then they are against you also. But if you don't identify yourself with the Arabs, then you are with us. You are a part of our family. So we have no problem. We will settle it. There are a few things, some adjustments to be made. That way, we are not a considerable person. And during Chandrasekhar's period, they had agreed. But unfortunately, the government fell. And therefore, the elections came, and then the Congress government came, and then the Babri Masjid got demolished. In our time alone, also on 9th December 1990, Ashok Singhal had decided that they will hold Car Seva in Ayodhya. Then Chandrasekhar told me, you know him, you talk to him. So I talked to him. And I talked to his representatives, and they agreed to suspend the agitation at Car Seva, saying that yes, we trust you will do it. I also did one more thing to win the confidence of the VHP at that time. I was not with them, I was in Janata Party, I was giving them galis every day. But they don't mind that because they were also giving me galis. So it's like husband and wife quarreling and saying horrible things and then making up and then pretending nothing of that kind happened. But that time they said yes, if we will lift it provided you go ahead with it. To prove my bona fides, I made the magistrate, the sessions judge, who of Faridabad in Faizabad, ruled that the tala should be, the lock should be removed from the Babri Masjid so that the Hindus can come in and start doing puja inside instead of standing outside in an iron gate and then doing puja to Lord Rama. That person was denied being made a High Court judge by VP Singh. And at that time, ironically, even Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who was supporting the VP Singh government, he also agreed that this man should not be given. And I had the Chief Minister of UP who had to consult was Mulayam Singh. Jagdish Shetty was my special assistant in the Law Ministry. And I told Mulayam Singh that I am going to make this man a judge, and he screamed and shouted at me. I said, I never asked for your approval. I only informed you so that you could learn from the newspaper. Why are you shouting at me? Then he said, Man ban gaya aapka? I said, Man ban gaya mera. So then he said, मुझे भी मौका दो, फाइल मुझे भेज दो, तुम्हारे लिए रास्ता बना दूंगा. So he wrote on it, Justice Pandey, निष्कपट, ईमानदार, ज्ञानी, all that. लेकिन उसने ताला खोलने के आदेश दिया तो इसलिए इसको जज कतई नहीं बनाना है. So I made him. Then Mulayam Singh came to see me with Azam Khan, that crackpot. And Azam Khan screaming, मुझे पहले ही पता था तुम्हारे से तुम घुसपैठ हो, this that, scream away. I said, listen, what could I do? Had Mulayam Singh written that ये नालायक जज है, ये नालायक है, ये इसको जज बनना की कोई हैसियत ही नहीं है, इसको मत बनाओ. मैं नहीं बनाता. इसने कहा ज्ञानी है और निष्कपट है. I said, therefore I made him. You didn't like his judgment, therefore I can't make it. What do you mean? So this fellow Azam Khan gave me gari and left, but Mulayam Singh winked and went away. So there are ways of getting things done, even if you are in a minority. And therefore, I did that, and that won the confidence of the BHP. Then we started the negotiations. Shahabuddin led the negotiation. He was also very well known to me. I took him to meet Parmacharya. The Parmacharya told him, bring him here. And you would be surprised when Shahabuddin saw Parmacharya's face, he started crying. I said, please save us. Let us not have fight. So Shahabuddin conceded there itself. And but unfortunately we could complete it. This history would have been unnecessary. So I am saying today that you have every legal right to revive, restore and rebuild Ram Temple under the Constitution. And it is the obduracy of the Muslim clerics which is so far prevented. But let me also tell you that in any country where Muslims are in majority, there is no secularism, there is no democracy. And they don't allow us Hindus to practice our religion there at all. You know, recently they expelled 9 or 11 Hindus for doing in their house Satyanarayana Puja. I don't know whether you saw this in the press. Kuwait, which is your favorite country, I know. You've been there so many times. Second favorite, first favorite is not India. He's an old friend of mine, so I take liberties with him, so don't think I'm being rude to a guest. And he's a very brilliant man, and he made such predictions. He was right on Delhi election, he was right on Bihar election. I cursed him all the way, but he was right. Anyway, the fact of the matter is that Kuwait, which was once upon a time considered one of the most modern Arab countries, they did this. In Saudi Arabia, even if you put a picture of Ram Chandraji, you can go to jail in your pocket. You can never celebrate Diwali, can't build a temple, can't do Satyanarayana Puja. You can't even bring pictures of Lord Rama in your baggage, which you will inspect, or even wear a sacred red thread around your wrist. So these countries, without exception, are like that. Only Indonesia, because it is a thoroughly Hinduized country. So Indonesia is a special example, special case. But these Arab countries, which are originally come out of, not out of Hinduism, but they have come out of their own whatever religion there was, and they are the most intolerant. And here we have to petition and argue, go to court, all this. I am going back to the Supreme Court very soon with a writ petition, making out all these arguments and asking for an early decision. In the meantime, there will be an agitation in the country for achieving and building Ram Temple. Ram Temple can be built within 3 months. Huh? Why? Because all these pillars and the foundation stones and the statue, everything is ready. We thought it would be done in Ashok Singhal thought it would be done during Vajpayee's period, but it went in the opposite direction. So it is all lying there in Ayodhya. All that needs to be done is say, okay, start. And it will be in 3 months you will have a magnificent Ram Temple. And the fact that the Supreme Court allowed my writ petition recently asking for certain facilities for the pilgrims, including repairing the makeshift temple, shows that the Supreme Court also has come around the mood that this Ram Temple will be allowed. It will be a great victory, and all VHS will be part of it. I will ensure that. And those Muslims also, there are many Muslims in our VHS also. I have been very frank with them. I have told them that I am not asking you to vacate a masjid that you have built on virgin land. I am only saying this you must do, because there is no scope for a masjid to exist in Ayodhya, because there are already 7 masjids in Ayodhya which are being used as cow sheds, you see, because nobody is going there. There are no Muslims around there to do it. Outside in the city there are masjids and people are going there. But in the parisar of Ayodhya Ram Janmabhoomi, there are 7 masjids where you will see cows there being kept because there is nobody there to take charge of it. So therefore, another masjid here will just be an affront to the Hindus. What is the point in it when masjid is not a sacred place for you? It is a place for reading namaz and will be a nice place to build namaz across the river. So this is the sum total of the Ram temple issue, and we hope to see 2016 end with all of us going and having in Ayodhya.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Dr. Swamy?
Why not have this session? Then when my next, I will take it off.
Okay.
That time we take it out today.
Yeah, we have a tea break.
Yeah,
Okay.
next time.
Okay.
What I suggest
Is that I am also addressing the valedictory address. Yeah, oh no, okay. There is some formality. Okay, let's have
I have a clarification to seek.
yes.
You said about the Government of India commitment to the Supreme Court in 1994 that if it is established that the mosque was built on the premises of the temple, then the government will act according to wishes of the Hindu community. Now, who is this Hindu community? Is it the person who has filed the case in the court? Tomorrow what happens if the Congress supported Hindu community, some organizations come and say we are also to be consulted, and without our consultation nothing can be done. What will be the position of the government? Who the government will recognize? Which organizations the government will recognize and which organizations the government will not recognize?
Good question. I will answer that by saying that I will urge the Prime Minister to move a resolution in Lok Sabha saying that in view of the fact that it is now established that there was a pre-existing temple, therefore the House resolves on behalf of the nation that a Hindu temple should be built in the site. Let Congress dare to vote against that.
Who will manage that mandir? That was, I think, trustee. Trustee. Who will be the trustee?
Which Hindu organization?
Is that a difficult problem? We will ask the Hindu Dharma Acharya Sabha to name names and that will go to the government, and then like in Somnath Temple, the entire administration will be modeled on the Somnath Temple. Somnath Temple was also built by the politicians, Sardar Patel, K.M. Munshi, etc. And today's trustees has politicians in it. Keshubai Patel is the chairman, Narendra Modi is a member, like that. L.K. Advani is also there, and there are some others. So let it be that the Hindu Dharma Acharya Sabha will nominate trustees for every 5 years and let them take charge. Okay.
Sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One
Ram
second.
Mandir.
Yeah, they're coming. Yeah, go on, you.
Yeah. Sir. Ram Mandir is already there. We have to only make it grander. I would like to see that we take up and also complete the projects of Kashi and Mathura during the next 1 decade or so. Is it possible? And actually related to that, I had informed you once earlier also in Bangalore that some law was passed that no further disputes can be brought about except Ayodhya, which is already there. And you had said there was no such law, and I had sent you a link.
No, you are talking about the 1991. You show me the text, I'll show you the loopholes in it. So don't quote laws to me. All laws are there to be broken. There are ways to get around it. I remember seeing that Narasimha Rao had brought it. He said that all existing structures will not be demolished. So let me go first with a structure that was demolished before the Act came into power. So the Babri Masjid question doesn't arise under this act. You are talking about the others, you see. There also I am talking about consensus. Once a consensus takes place, we can always amend that law to say, otherwise, unless otherwise by mutual agreement it is decided to change the character of it, you see. So these laws are not in our way.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Is there in any way by which VHS members could align and contribute in whichever small way to the cause of this proceedings in the
When after the 9th, we will send out a circular how you can do it. Okay? Now,
Dr. Swamy, all the evidence shows that there was Ram temple was there, and why would Supreme Court assign 1/3 to Muslims?
No, they didn't assign. They didn't assign 1/3 either. In fact, of the 3 domes, 2 domes were given to the Hindus. The third dome area, they said you can build a masjid. That's what they said. But that was a observation, and it's not a Supreme Court observation; it's a High Court observation. And you must remember, the judgment was given at the time when the UPA was in power. I think, and then subsequently the judge was most extreme, Justice Sharma. He has been through hell, being threatened and this and that. A lot of things have happened. But I don't think that there is any question. Knowing the Supreme Court moved, and the fact is also, if the fact that the BJP government is in power, and if not, maybe I should say people like Narendra Modi is there, the RSS is, Narendra Modi is there, and RSS is now become a very big organization. I don't see that there will be much resistance to a negotiated settlement which keeps the self-respect of the Muslim community also intact to this happening, because the facts are so. The other things we'll take up once this is done. Once this is done, we can have further negotiations. Yeah.
So we have 2 quick questions. One is, when you mentioned that when Pran Pratishtha is done in the temple, all the Shastras and the Agama Pandits do it, the Lord of the temple enters into the Murti. So he is the owner of the temple. In case of a dispute on the temple side, is the legal position that the deity is considered as a minor, number 1. And number 2, you mentioned about Waqf board. So the Waqf board, whatever little I understand, and I've read some literature, is that they're very bigoted in terms of against the own Indian Muslims. So they consider the Arabic blood line that comes in Muslim as the most supreme, and the people who have a Hindu ancestry as the lower Muslim. So could this be used in propaganda to show that whatever the Waqf board is trying to do to stop this Ram Mandir project, they are bigoted people and should not be considered?
Well, they were there when I was asking for renovation of the existing temple, and they opposed it tooth and nail. But the court ruled in my favor, and they have accepted it. You know, the problem is not with Muslims, sir. The problem is with Hindus. There are a bunch of confused people. So once the Hindu mind is clear, I think the Muslims are practical enough to see that as long as it doesn't interfere with their religion, they will adjust.
I request Varun to give his remarks, and after that we'll have a 10-minute session, Q&A session with Dr. Swamy on other topics. I will not restrict it to content level. And after that we'll be having a session on global strategy against global terrorism and the validate traitors by Dr. Swamy.
Thank you very much, Dr. Swamiji. And thank you very much for your great presence among us. Thank you very much for your great deep knowledge about how we can rebuild the temple, how we can make a management body of the temple, all these things. But I would like to say, जो हम कभी फूले फले थे राम राज्य बसंत में, हाँ देख ली हमको बड़ी औरंगजेबी अंत में, है कर्म का ही दोष अथवा सब समय की बात है, होता कभी दिन है कभी होती अंधेरी रात है. But now, today is very bright day, and all Amavasya ki raat has gone, because Dr. Subramanian Swamiji, you are showing a path to us. How we can be a great nation in this world. Thank you very much, Swamiji. But I would like also add a few things. It's my personal opinion. It's not BHS opinion, it's not BJP opinion, it's nothing. It's my personal opinion. Hindu cannot be safe in this existing democratic system, which I feel personally. It's a very tough system. If you see from the gap inside this democratic multi-party system, there's more than 1,200 parties existing in India. So how you can save your culture, your religion, when there's so many rights for others, and you have less rights now? One thing, if you want not rule only in India, if you want rule over the world, then we need united. We have to become over the caste system, we have to become over the state system, language system, all these small systems. We have to finish all these things and just become a one nation, one people, one dharma, one ideology. Then we can rule this nation very easily, we can rule whole world very easily. And one thing more, I have a question for Swamiji and for Nalapatji. Maybe in next session you can explain that. Could it possible Muslim free India? Could it possible, or if possible, how can be possible and how long it will be take? Thank you very much. Thank you.
So why only India, why not world? Okay, we still have 10 minutes. If any of you have any questions to Dr. Swamy on any other subject, not restricted to rock temple alone. Maybe one by one. With the mic?
Use the mic, please mention your name if possible.
Where's the mic?
Please mention your name and state.
Myself is Shashank Tiwari, and I want to know, Swamiji, your thought on the vision of Akhand Bharat and single language across the country.
See, thinking in terms of Akhand Bharat and all is a bit premature, because the Khandit Bharat has to be first integrated, and we must ensure that territories like Pakistan occupied Kashmir, or parts which are with China, these have to be brought back. And this division we have in our country on caste and region and language and so on, these have to be also slowly integrated. There are some strong factors already. For instance, for all the influence of Dawood Ibrahim on our films in Bombay or in any other part of India, film producing, all the stories deal with only Hindu families. Occasionally you will have something on Mera Naam Khan hai or something like that. But that is on a special. But any family story or anything, even the Muslim actors in it or actresses in it, they have Hindu names. That is the power of the numbers of the Hindus we are. And that number has to be now leveraged in such a way that slowly we begin to be a little assertive. Let the Hindus slowly become a little assertive on his rights. And question of there is no way, as somebody said, except in your dream, forcibly removing any community from India. Nor do we need to do it. Because the process of Hinduization will take place when international events change. And international events are bound to change because of this new emerging factor of ISIS on which Monu is going to speak in the next session. So consequently, what we should do is, instead of thinking of such a large issue, break down this issue into 5-6 parts and then solve each of those parts separately. In those of you who have done operations research will know this is called dynamic programming, where you break an n-dimensional problem into n problems of 1 dimension each. So the same way, these problems should be handled in language, emphasize Sanskrit, learning of Sanskrit. All of us can learn Sanskrit. The Sanskrit Bharati, which is RSS runs, will teach you within 2 weeks. They will teach you enough Sanskrit to get going, and after that you can watch Sanskrit news or read Sanskrit documents and go on improving your Sanskrit. Sanskrit is something which you should, in additional language, you should learn. So each of these problems separately are solvable, but when you all put it together, it will become very difficult. You can't live in an isolated world. There are a lot of international factors, and you have to neutralize them also. So goal may be fine, but the strategy to achieve that goal is the key part.
Sir, my name is Ranjit. Question is regarding the current state of West Bengal internal security. It's a state that gave us the minds like Swamy Vivekananda and Netaji and Sri Aurobindo. And nowadays we see hundreds of kilos of explosives found, and bombs are being made in TNC MP's office and houses. And BJP members have been taken at gunpoint and trashed, and bomb blasts outside RSS office.
Yeah.
Do you see any improvement in the situation?
Yeah, it's a difficult situation in Bengal because the uprooting of a 32-year-old reign of the communists in Bengal, which is no better than Mamdas, from a different point of view, was made possible because of the Nandigram agitation, in which Mamata Banerjee went to the extreme in defending them and in fact driving away Tata from that place. Now she continues to pander to that extreme, to that minority group, the Muslims, to ensure that her electoral base is never weakened, because the only alternative to her at present, unless the BJP emerges, the BJP itself has lots of problems and bound to have, because for years they were nowhere. So then all these party leaders who are today party leaders made all kinds of adjustments to survive. And today those adjustments are a real burden on us, and they hamper our flowering in the state. So Is it out of control? No Indian state is out of the control to the extent that it will be able to secede from India. All you need is one intervention of the center, and that state will fall in line. The closest we came in the last 30 years to a state seceding was in 1990-91, when Karunanidhi, with the help of the LTT, had practically decided to secede. And at that time, by his bad luck, I came into the office and we dismissed the government. And I sat in Tamil Nadu and ensured that the entire infrastructure of the LTT was uprooted and thrown away. That's why they get so abusive about me, because they think I played a major role in completely breaking the back. Now LTT can, if at all, whatever remnants are there, can only go underground activities, but they can't come overground. Now, I would think, therefore, these central forces are strong enough to intervene in Kashmir, in Bengal, in any other place, to see that it doesn't go that far. But that's hardly a solace to the people there who are suffering. And we'll have to see. Let's let the elections get closer and see whether there's a marked improvement in the way the BJP is going to handle the Bengal situation.
Sir, my name is Prabhakar Chaudhary. I'm from Mumbai. Sir, in the center ने एक reports में लिखा है कि Taj Mahal is not a Hindu, was not a Hindu temple or something like that. So,
who?
Center ने एक report.
Taj Mahal,
So जानना चाहता था, what's your views on this? Should we revive the debate that Taj Mahal was a temple?
In 1977, when the Janata came to power, I had gone to Agra to address a meeting for the youth wing of the Janata Party, and then went to see Taj Mahal. And there I was shown doors leading to the basement, which were under lock. So I asked the call, I am now a ruling party member, so and so I thought, I was also much younger, so a little more brash than I am today. So I called the superintendent and said, just go follow. He refused. He said, I have orders never to allow anyone to go below it. Then I came back and complained to Moraji. And Moraji told me, why you want to go down? I said, I want to see what's downstairs. I mean, I didn't know there was the path leading to the floor. What will you see? You'll see some statues of Hindu gods and all, and you will draw all kinds of conclusions, you will create problems. I'm not going to allow you. So from that time I began to examine. There are some anomalies about that history. How could Shah Jahan build such a thing in such a short time? Why would he name it as Mahal? It's a tomb. It's a tomb. So why should you name it as Mahal and name it after a person? See, I can understand Babur being allowed to do it, but Shah Jahan, and why didn't, if it was so, why didn't Aurangzeb change the name? So it's after all his mother. So the issue therefore is that there is something there which requires a correct history. There was an American recently who looked at the architectural principles behind this construction and came to the conclusion it was in fact not an Islamic structure. In fact, it had all the elements of the Hindu structure. Now, I have not been able to find time to devote attention to this, and this is something I'm keeping for my retirement whenever it takes place, maybe another 30-40 years later.
Morning everyone. This is Ashwat from Bangalore. Sir, currently the way the media portrays the present government is a Hindu fascist organization which has claimed majority, and and it is all orchestrated the way it is being projected, that intolerance is rising, and there is a orchestration among the groups who are chanting intolerance. So and media is playing a huge role in all these things. So isn't it the need of the hour for media regulation, an independent authority like Election Commission, which basically does media regulation, and because the amount of media coverage which was given to Dadri was not given to Prashant Pujari's murder, and that got wiped under the carpet. So isn't it a need for a media regulation at this point of time?
Well, first of all, the expert who can answer this is the former editor of the Times of India, Mr. Mohan Malapat, who is presently Professor of Peace Studies, and hopefully in the very near future, National Security Advisor of India. He has experience, but his turn will come later. Let him deal with the subject. Let me answer this. First of all, it is the Information Broadcasting Ministry which is in a position to do something, and there I have no influence at all. So no use asking me to do something about it. You better go and ask the Minister for Information Broadcasting. Second thing is, if you do anything, it will get more shrill, the things that you are concerned about. It will then become international press that the government is suppressing and so on. Third thing is that they were saying all this even before the election and still we won. As long as we don't blow it, whether the press continues to write this and that, if you bring back black money, if you can control prices, you can make the economy boom, you abolish income tax, then to hell with the press, they don't matter. So therefore I'm saying that please keep track of what they're doing, but don't think that these things are going to have much effect on our prospects. Only we ourselves can set ourselves back. It can't be done by the media.
Can you pass on the mic to the front?
Good morning, everyone. I am Chana from Hyderabad, Telangana. Good morning, sir. I have a question to you. Two questions. One, it is regarding the Ram Temple construction. If at all Ram Temple construction is happening, it is massive. That is what everybody is waiting for. After this, during the election before, if at all the Ram Temple construction is happened, how the impact is going to be had in 2019 election for the BJP? And this is your views we wanted to.
Well, the immediate effect will be on the UP election of 2017.
Okay. Already we have seen the Bihar.
And because of UP, then 2019 will be a. I am personally of the view, by the way, despite all that has happened and happening, that we will not be unseated for another 15 years. Astrologers may say that this will happen, that will happen, but it is my conviction that events will be such, not only in this Ram Temple, but there will be other events which will be international in character, which will ensure that we will come back for at least another 2 more terms.
Thank you.
Namaste. My name is Srinivas. I am from Hyderabad. There is one sloka in Ramayana. Anirveda Sriyo Moolam, Anirveda Param Sukham. It says enthusiasm is the source of everything. Enthusiasm is the source of your strength, source of any achievement. I find a lot of juniors are missing out of action. It's very shocking to me. Last month, a few months back, one of my one-down, we had a small discussion over a tea, and we discussed about Hindu kings. He said, we couldn't manage properly, there are no good Hindu kings, and they did well. That was the reaction from my one-down. I inquired about Prithviraj Chauhan, I inquired about Rana Pratap. They are blank. I feel we should have a lot of mentoring going on among us, and to do that, we should have some media tools, more information on our Hindu kings. They don't know Krishnadeva, they don't know Chalukya, Cholas, Raja Cholas. They only know what is there in the textbook. And in fact, in Andhra Jyoti Sunday edition last week, they glorified Tipu Sultan, and they were comparing with Shivaji, even Sri Krishnadeva. I was shocked. I'm trying to write something in Telugu, but my mind is limited.
Hyderabadism is a good ruler now.
They already said that at highest levels. So the basic is we should have a huge library of the content. You pick it up and immediately spread it across to our. I'm talking about our youngsters. They are not with us. They are on a different world altogether, and we have to connect it. Sure.
No, I agree with you that our understanding, but that was deliberately done, and we are still continuing that poison that is being fed to us about our history. Now, this present day, this ISIS is part of this caliphate, and they say they are successor to Umar. Umar had taken a vow that he will conquer India. And you know that your Andhra, Maharashtra, Gujarat and Rajasthan, Rajas came together and gave him such a blistering defeat, his army, that Umar heart broke and the caliphate could not rise for 1300 years after that. The Chalukyas, the Rashtrakutas, the Rai dynasty of Rajasthan, the Pratihara of Gujarat, all these were who came together. You don't remember. When I was teaching at Harvard, one of my Saudi Arabian students asked me that despite 800 years of Muslim rule and 200 years of Christian rule, how are you still 80% Hindu? In Iran, where the Parsis, the Zoroastrians were ruling, and they were not, they were also fighters. The Cyrus went all the way to Greece. But when the Islam conquered them, in 15 years they became 100% Muslim. So did Babylon and Mesopotamia, which is now known as Iraq, in 17 years. Egypt in 21 years. Europe became 100% Christian in 50 years. But here 800 plus 200. You're 80%. How did it happen? You ask the students, nobody knows. But the fact is, Krishnadeva Raya or Shivaji or, everywhere they were, Rani Chennamma. So people fought everywhere all the time. And that's why we even worship in our country, Rana Pratap, who did not lead you to victory. But he ended up in a forest eating chapatis made out of grass. But his sheer courage, Subhash Chandra Bose didn't lead you to victory, but he's a bigger hero today than Jawaharlal Nehru. So therefore, I agree with you. Maybe when the next session we have a VHS, we will have a special session on history and what are the high points that you have to learn and which is the book that you can read. I'd hope that our government could commission a man like Rajiv Malhotra to write a correct history of India. But there's so much, 60 years or 69 years of their rule in this country. They have managed to fit in their people at all levels and even reduce, have clones put into BJP also.
Okay, I think it's time for us to move on. So we will reserve anything else for the. Okay, one last.
Namaskar, sir.
Yes.
My name is Nayamadhu and I am from Jammu and Kashmir. My question is, how you see that Kashmiri Pandit's problem can be solved?
There's only one way to solve Kashmir problem, Pandit's problem. There are roughly 300 or 500, let's say 5 lakh Kashmiri Pandits who will come up. I think we have 1 crore ex-servicemen, out of them at least 40% of them are still fighting fit. Out of them you select 10 lakhs, tell them go and settle in Kashmir and clean up the area and give them weapons, give them money. And once they have established their bases in the whole of Kashmir, then ask the Kashmiri Pandits to go back. Then nobody will touch them.
Sir, but it is practically feasible in this form of government.
This one?
Yes,
Of course it is.
But Article 317 don't allow you to settle over there, right? Any families or anyone from outside.
These are laws, they can only be fixed.
Even in
I mean, you are already decided to lose, then what I can do?
no, I'm
I am telling you, people who should tell me in the 70s that India is incapable of growing faster than 3.5% per year. This is the Hindu rate of growth. This is what the Amartya Sen and all these people told me. And because I said in 1971 I wrote a book saying that we can grow at 10% per year, and this is the policy which Mrs. Indira Gandhi already sat across.
not a person's right.
You know you will be speaking in the next session.
No, this is a small section, not a person.
Yes.
My friend on the
He's a
right.
DGP of former DGP.
I am Dinesh from Hyderabad. My friend on the right said Muslim free India. I think this our meeting should avoid using such terms because I entirely agree with Dr. Swamy. The problem is not with the Indian Muslims. The problem is with the Indian Hindus. We preach what is known as pseudo-secularism and we create all these problems. If you are very strong Hindus, the Muslims will automatically adjust. Muslims per se are very secular. It's only 1/3 of the Muslims who are getting into the jihadi way of things all over the world. So this August meeting, if you use such words, totally to give a different connotation that we are trying to...
No, he said it is my personal view. And I will convert him, don't worry.
As part of this convention, we use that. If it goes out, different connotation.
No. Let
Thank
it
you,
go.
sir. I entirely agree with Dr. Swamy.
Well, I mean, he is a person who has expressed a view. There's nothing wrong. We are an open body. We are. Yesterday, I was accused of being anti-Dalit. There is Ashirvadam. There he is. See? So, but I think it was good he did because that brought out the debate in an angle which helped to clear our minds of many things. So these are in VHS we have no taboo on what should be said, but our view is not as VHS what he said, and he said he made a clarificatory remark that I am expressing my personal view. Please don't misunderstand, and we don't misunderstand. But I am 100% certain that I've changed 2 or 3 of his views already. I'll change the 4th one also.
I know many of you want to ask some more questions. Maybe you can interact with Dr. Swamy during the lunch break or tea break because we have to move on to the next session. Now we have a short tea break and we will be reassembling at 10:45 and we'll have the next session at that point.
Next session and what section? Next people of people of